doing all the... Thank you, Sass, so much for doing all of the Zoom tech for us. And when you're not feeling so well as well, it's much appreciated. So welcome, everyone, to our Yuletide ceremony on the Universal Christ this time. I will begin with a general talk outlining the meaning of the Universal Christ before we begin our candle lighting ceremony towards the end, which is really more of an inner connection or contemplative meditation, if you will. So for those that have perhaps joined when the music was playing, there's an invitation to get a candle at home and some matches if you want to participate in the candle lighting ceremony. But if not, there's also an invitation if you prefer to imagine light instead. That's also another option for you today as well. So we've already listened to Alana Lewandowski's The Christ Hymn. It is available, as you've seen, on YouTube, so you can listen to it again if you like. But I felt that it was a really contemporary introduction to the essence of the theme today of the Universal Christ. So just let's reflect contemplatively on Alana's beautiful words at the beginning that invoke, if you like, or attune us to the Universal Christ. She says, everything holds together, everything. From stars that pierce the dark like living sparks to secret seeds that open every spring. From spanning galaxies to spinning quarks, everything holds together and coheres, unfolding from the center whence it came. And now that hidden heart of things appears, the firstborn of creation takes a name. And shall I see the one through whom I am? Shall I behold the one for whom I'm made? The light in light, the flame within the flame, ekontuteo, image of my God. He comes, a little child, to bless my sight, that I might come to him for life and light. The Universal Christ, in whom all things hold together. So the Universal Christ is a term used by some contemporary Christian teachers and theologians today, such as Elia Delio, she's a Catholic female theologian, and Father Bede Griffiths. For those of you who know Father Bede Griffiths, he started off life as a Benedictine monk. He famously left England for India in search of the other half of his soul. He became a Hindu sannyasin called Swami Dayananda, meaning the bliss of compassion. And he established an ashram that still exists today that's dedicated to the interfaith or interreligious understanding of Buddhist, Christian and Hindu theologies. And he has written on the cosmic Christ. But it is Father Richard Raw, a Franciscan priest who's still alive today, who has made reference to the Universal Christ popular. And it's the book that is my source is this one here, The Universal Christ by Father Richard Raw. And for Father Richard Raw, he wants to refer to the word Christ, not as, he says, Jesus' last name, in the way that in the West it's almost come to sound, hasn't it? Jesus Christ, almost so Christ as a surname. But he says, you know, the Christ is the transcendent within of everything in the universe that Jesus was connected to in his attunement of that level of soul consciousness. So Father Richard Raw in his book invites us to think about this word Christ and to reflect meditatively on, you know, what if Christ is a name for the transcendent within of everything in the universe? What if Christ is a name for the immense spaciousness of all true love? What if Christ refers to an infinite horizon that pulls us from within and pulls us forward too? And what if Christ is another name for everything? Everything in its fullness. So you can see that Alana's Christ hymn was very inspired by these ideas. And essentially, Christ in this context refers to the Greek term Christos, meaning divine mind. And it's perhaps more akin to a contemporary interfaith understanding of what is sometimes called Christ consciousness, with the extended idea that there have been many other Christed ones or Christed ones, which, in my view, as I understand it, is very similar indeed to the Buddhist concept of enlightened beings or bodhisattvas, with the concept of buddhi or chitta, meaning the intelligence of being, of divine being or divine mind. And Richard Rohr says that Christ is a word for the primordial template known in Greek as the Logos. And very often in traditional theology, the Greek logos for Jesus is regarded as or translated as the word. But Richard Rohr says it's really the Christ as the logos, as the primordial template, that kind of first born of creation in Christ consciousness. And in an American Indian tradition of the ancient wisdom, White Eagle asks, and what of Christ? Do not fall into the error of thinking that Christ was born 2,000 years ago. Christ, the light, the Son of God, was in being at the beginning of the world. If we will search, we will find the mysteries of Christianity contained in all the schools of ancient mysteries. Christ was born in a stable, so the Christian teaching says. Christ is born in the humblest home, always. Some teachers have said that he was born in the cave of man's heart. It's beautiful. The Christ being the babe that is born in the cave of man's heart. And as many of you here today in interfaith circles will already know, I'm sure, discovering the God within the heart, that interior path to God, is particularly well articulated in Sufism, which teaches that there are generally 3 levels of understanding God and divinity. And at first, the Sufi teaching says that, we grow up as children and we encounter an intellectual understanding of God, an intellectual belief of God, kind of God as a concept, the concept of an external transcendental God that is somehow out there, but doesn't really emphasize the God that is within. And so, secondly, we then find in many traditions God presented as a more personal God or deity. So we find that as Jesus or Buddha or Krishna, for example. And because making an image of God in a more personal way, it's easier for human beings to relate to that kind of understanding of divinity rather than kind of something more transcendental. But finally, the Sufis say, the third understanding of God is an understanding of the heart. It's the experiential God within the heart, as the interior immanence of God within the interior soul consciousness of human beings. This is what Sufis call the secret heart, or what they call the Sirya, which is in the center of the subtle center of the chest. The subtle center of the heart is what the Sufis call the Sirya. And it is that center which births the Christ light, which we'll explore a little more. So in my own interfaith journey in my 20s and 30s, I had a very Eastern Hindu Advaita Vedanta, Buddhism and Sufism were my primary influences. But I decided after my ordination as an interfaith minister in 2018, so 5 years ago now, to study Christian spirituality and mystical theology at Theological College, and I've just completed my master's degree there. And I did this to attempt to bridge my own Eastern understanding of spirituality with Western Christian mystical theology. And contrary to my expectations, I was really surprised and delighted to find some contemporary, as well as classical theologians who embrace broader theologies, broader understandings, more interfaith understandings of the universal or cosmic Christ. Like Father Richard Rohr's definition of Christ as the transcendent within of everything in the universe, that is discovered as immanent in the depths of our own hearts. And many of the traditional Christian mystics refer in various ways to the soul's interior discovery of the light within, and the soul's union with God or communion with God as the mystical union of the immanence of God in the soul merging with the universal transcendental light of the world. And for example, contemporary Christian teacher Lawrence Freeman writes in his book, which is called Light Within, the Inner Path of Meditation, he says, "The God whose spirit dwells within us then shines through our spirit as sunlight shines through the water. This is what Christians call purity of heart. It's the clarity of consciousness that allows us to see God. Blessed are the pure of heart, said Jesus, for they shall see God." And another very famous Christian mystic, Hildegard of Bingen, she said something similar. She said, "Our souls are like a transparent crystal through which God can be perceived." And similarly, another Christian mystic, Saint Teresa of Avila, discovered in her interior journeying through the 7 mansions of her soul to union with God, that the soul is innately as capable of sharing this divine light as a crystal is in reflecting the radiance of the sun. So there we have 3 contemplatives, all referring to the interior path to God, the subtle consciousness of the human being, awakening to the realization of the soul, which is able then to reflect the light of spirit like a crystal, being able to reflect the radiance of the sun. And I think this is beautiful imagery today on the eve of the Christmas Yuletide solstice, of the return of the light. And so taking some interfaith themes along similar ideas, we're going to turn now to Islamic mysticism or Sufism. And Sufism is often associated with Islamic mysticism, but it must remember that Sufism, certainly these days, is much broader than only Islamic mysticism, and actually is very universal in feel and understanding. And there's a beautiful imagery in Islamic mysticism of the lamp that hangs in the center of the niches in Islamic mosques, because these are architectural symbols of the divine light that's shining in the hearts of mankind. And it's based on the famous Islamic verse of light, or Ayat al-Nur in the Quran. So I'm going to first read the verse of light, or Ayat al-Nur itself, in which God is referred to as light, or Nur, which is the word for light, as one of the sacred 99 names of God, Allah, describing a lamp in a niche as a symbol of the divine light, that is in turn an esoteric symbol of the light that shines in the heart cavity of the human being. So the verse of light, Ayat al-Nur. God is the light of the heavens and the earth. The symbol of his light is as a niche wherein is a lamp. The lamp is in a glass, and this glass is, as it were, a radiant star, kindled from a blessed olive tree, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would all but glow though fire touch it not. Light upon light. God guideth to his light whom he will, and God sighteth symbols for men, and God is the knower of all things. So the niche, or mihrab, is symbolic of the cave, the womb of earth and of the sensory, material, manifested world, and also the womb of the heart, or what in Christianity might be called the Vesica Pisces, the feminine divine principle of the womb of all life, wherein the Christ babe, the light in the heart, is born. And Sufism similarly teaches that the meaning of every sacred cave is the universe turned inwards, the secret world of the heart, the Syria, the abode of the true self, which is illuminated by the divine sun of the spirit. This links to Hinduism too, where the cave of the heart is a well-known traditional expression. The Sanskrit word guha generally designates a cave, but is also used to point to the internal cavity of the heart, in which the soul, or Atma, is identical to, in the sense of being one with, the light of Brahman, or God, divinity. The Islamic niche has also been compared with prayer niches of the Virgin Mary in Christian Catholic cathedrals and churches, where the Virgin Mary represents the esoteric reality of the feminine divine wisdom and spirit, which I feel is very similar to Hinduism's feminine concept of Prakriti as the universal ineffable energy or essence of the primordial spirit, the Purusha, that is both virginal in purity and maternal as the ever-creating womb of all life. So we can see there some similar esoteric ideas of the light, the divine light that comes through the internal cavity of the heart, the lataif, the latifa, or chakra of the heart. So the broader theologies of the universal Christ allow for universal esoteric ideas that the birth of the Christ consciousness is potentially birthed in everyone as our true selves, one with God, so that we all become like a spirit-lit lamp hanging in the niche or cave of our own hearts. From another universal wisdom tradition, I like the profound words of the teacher White Eagle, who articulates the nativity story of Christmas as an age-old story of the universal Christ. So he says, many question the truth of this old story of the birth of the Christ, of the visitation of the shepherds and the wise men. Nevertheless, this old Christian story contains a universal truth, which you can accept in all its simplicity. It presents a profound cosmic truth, a truth which has been again and again demonstrated to humanity from the beginning, this truth of divine birth in matter. Don't let this little lower mind analyze and doubt this when you all secretly love the carols and enjoy the story of the birth in the stable. It means, of course, that Jesus Christ is born in very humble, lowly states. The gentle Christ is worshipped by the shepherds and the magi. The simple and the wise all worship the Christ. The shepherds signify those who have a little knowledge, but who, through meditation and contemplation, behold the light in the heavens. They are the young initiates. They follow the star to the birthplace. The wise men are those who have occult knowledge of a more advanced type, but they too have learnt the lesson of humility. They come as messengers to every human soul entering upon physical life. They bring gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to that soul. Every soul that incarnates does so with certain opportunities or gifts. Every soul has to learn the value of gold, both physical and spiritual. Every soul is sprinkled with the incense of wisdom. Every soul is sent into the world with potentialities, but must also taste the myrrh or bitterness as well as the joy in life. Think of the significance of this story, and remember also at Christmas time the adoration of the Divine Mother and the Christ child in her arms. Yes, Christmas is a far, far greater event than anyone can at present recognize, a cosmic event which has great meaning for mankind. If you will pause and attune your soul at Christmas, you will be rewarded by an inflow of light, beauty, and peace. You will see that the 12 disciples whom Jesus called round him represent the 12 types of men, the 12, we might say, types of the zodiac. They were all different. There were also the 3 wise men who possessed great intellectual knowledge, but were wise enough to recognize the Holy Child and to bow down and worship the simple and childlike. Great men and women are simple at heart and worship simple things. These wise men brought their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold for the sun and material health, frankincense or incense meaning wisdom, and myrrh, the gift of bitterness and sorrow. All these were necessary for the child. They are sent to every child, whether born to wealth or poverty. The babe has to handle materiality, which is the same thing. He has to learn to handle and control and use the material gifts, whether they be grand or otherwise. Every child has to learn to handle material life. Every child has to learn to handle the sorrow and bitterness which come into every life. Every child also receives wisdom and sweetness, the frankincense, which burns within him and aspires to the heavens through prayer. For as true prayer is expressed in the human heart, it rises like incense into the heavens and calls from the heavens the response that the soul cries for. So with our understanding of the universal Christ, let us listen to a Christmas poem called Blind Noel. Let us listen to it with new ears. It's a poem by R.S. Thomas, who was an Anglican priest and poet, and which I feel expresses the essence of the vastness of the universal Christ, born as a babe, as a child in all of us. It's called Blind Noel. It's very short. Christmas, the themes are exhausted, yet there is always room on the heart for another snowflake to reveal the pattern. Love knocks with such frosted fingers. I look out. In the shadow of so vast a God, I shiver, unable to detect the child or the whiteness. One of my favourite Christmas poems, Blind Noel by R.S. Thomas. I'd now like to move from the talk element of this evening to our candle lighting and ceremonial part of our Yuletide Christmas solstice ceremony. But I would like to begin this ceremony with a Christmas poem by Dr. Maya Angelou called Amazing Peace. which I feel brings to mind the realities of many facing hardship and struggle at Christmas time. It's called Amazing Peace, a Christmas poem by Maya Angelou. Thunder rumbles in the mountain passes, and lightning rattles the eaves of our houses. Floodwaters await us in our avenues. Snow falls upon snow to avalanche over unprotected villages. The sky slips low and grey and threatening. We question ourselves. What have we done to so affront nature? We worry, God, are you there? Are you there really? Does the covenant you made with us still hold? Into this climate of fear and apprehension, Christmas enters, streaming lights of joy, ringing bells of hope, and singing carols of forgiveness high up in the bright air. The world is encouraged to come away from rancor, come the way of friendship. It is the glad season. Thunder ebbs to silence and lightning sleeps quietly in the corner. Floodwaters recede into memory. Snow becomes a yielding cushion to aid us as we make our way to higher ground. Hope is born again in the faces of children. It rides on the shoulders of our ages as they walk into their sunsets. Hope spreads around the earth, brightening all things, even hate, which crouches breeding in dark corridors. In our joy, we think we hear a whisper. At first, it is too soft, then only half heard. We listen carefully as it gathers strength. We hear a sweetness. The word is peace. It is loud now. It is louder, louder than the explosion of bombs. We tremble at the sound. We are thrilled by its presence. It is what we have hungered for, not just the absence of war, but true peace. A harmony of spirit, a comfort of courtesies, security for our beloveds and their beloveds. We clap hands and welcome the peace of Christmas. We beckon on this good season to wait a while with us. We, Baptist and Buddhist, Methodist and Muslim, say, come, peace. Come and fill us and our world with your majesty. We, the Jew and the Jainist, the Catholic and the Confucian, implore you to stay a while with us, so we may learn by your shimmering light how to look beyond complexion and see community. It is Christmas time, a halting of hate time. On this platform of peace, we can create a language to translate ourselves to ourselves and to each other. At this holy instant, we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ into the great religions of the world. We jubilate the precious advent of trust. We shout with glorious tongues at the coming of hope. All the earth's tribes loosen their voices to celebrate the promise of peace. We, angels and mortals, believers and non-believers, look heavenward and speak the word aloud. Peace. We look at our world and speak the word aloud. Peace. We look at each other and then into ourselves, and we say without shyness or apology or hesitation, peace, my brother. Peace, my sister. Peace, my soul. Beautiful Christmas poem by Maya Angelou. So now if you have brought a candle to light, or if you have one close to hand, we're going to light a candle for our Yuletide ceremony for the universal Christ. In a moment, we can light our candles together, And once we have lit them, we can hold them before our hearts, symbolizing the birth of the universal Christ light in our own hearts and in the hearts of all, radiating around the world with renewed hope for world peace, as Maya Angelou's poem so poignantly points to at this time. But if you don't have a candle with you, that's absolutely fine. And you're invited to just imagine an inner flame inside your heart chakra, igniting this Christmas light, this Christ consciousness, and radiating around the aura of your heart into the world around you. So I have my little tea light here, and I found this this little tea light, and it took me back to my ordination because they were tea lights created by one of our 2018 cohort, and it has never been lit before. And I'm lighting this this candle with a renewal of my own vows, which were and are to kindle a flame of sacred love on the altar of my heart. Those were my vows 5 years ago. And so with the spirit of the universal Christ, I renew my interfaith vows and light my own heart as the symbol of the universal Christ in the hearts of all. So I invite you now to light your candles and then hold them near to your hearts as a symbol of the wisdom, the Christ consciousness in your own hearts. So with our real or imagined hearts lit with light, let us close our eyes if you feel comfortable and if that's safe for you holding a flame. And slowly bring your attention to the breath. Just allow the breathing to connect you to your soul consciousness, your own inner Christ consciousness. Just inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. Allowing the breath to relax the body. And drop slowly into the silence, dropping into the stillness and inner light of your soul that pervades your body. Just allowing your own inner light to renew itself in the winter rest of your still body and connected with the cosmic body of the sleeping earth. Sleeping earth wherein is the Christ consciousness, the universal Christ as the transcendent within of everything in the earth. And sensing that growing light within you, the fire of spirit that is always there, ever present, warm and shining like the solstice sun tonight, soon to be reborn with the gradual return of the light to the earth. Where do you feel the light glowing most strongly within you? Just take a few moments to sense into it, feel into it. Get a sense of your consciousness that pervades the physical body. Your soul consciousness. soul message does your soul light bring for you tonight? What is the soul message to you from your own heart, from the light of spirit that radiates through your own soul as a crystal reflects the solstice sun? The message from your higher self, from the divine within. Taking a few moments to hear the voice of spirit, the voice of the universal Christ within. And resting in the warm glow of your inner soul light, sense into the light in your hearts, your essential soul self awakening, awakening also to the call to light the hearts of others. And Sufi priests, ministers are called sharaga, which means lamp, a lamp that lights the lamp of others. So finally, feeling a deep connection between all of our hearts in this Zoom space, resting in the cosmic blanket of the presence of the universal Christ that connects us all. So now the invitation is to remain present with your open and radiating heart of the universal Christ light, as we listen to a beautiful piece of music that celebrates the birth of light. And after the contemplative music has ended, then I invite you to blow out your candle with a wish for your hopes or your intentions to catch the solstice rays of the sun to manifest into the world. So now, Sass will screen share for us Onata Looks by Lauriston.